Invading the internet, covering Web 2.0, coast to coast, worldwide, and everywhere in between. This is where you put the social in social media. We are Social Blade.
We are so Social Blade, and you can't see me. You can't see Victor. You can't see Jeff, but you can see the rest of the crew, as well as a very special guest who we'll get to. Greetings. I'm J.D. Rucker, not visible, but here at least in spirit. I'm one of the co-hosts of Social Blade.
I'm Aaron Ryan.
I'm Jason Ergo.
And we do have, yes, we do have a special guest by the name of John, and John is as close as you can get to having a college education in social networking itself. But we'll get more into John and everything that he does later. John, please feel free, as a social media guy, please feel free to jump in on any of these stories, voice your opinion, and let us know what we're saying that's incorrect. So
keep us in line, John.
Huh?
I said keep us in line, John.
Yes, keep us in line. Make sure that we're not tardying, we're not chewing gum in class.
Oh, whoops.
And make sure that you know how big of a week this was. Do you know how big of a week this was, John?
Well, I know
That's
that
what I thought.
a couple interesting things going on. I know with privacy, so it's kind of ironic that I'm on this time. So
yeah, that's very true.
Important to talk about.
Yep, I would love to say that this week was jam-packed with social media goodness and quality and news, but you all already know that because there's no such thing as privacy in the internet anymore. It's all out there, open, and so I'm not telling you anything new. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all of this stuff is starting to turn into just a big, huge, open area for people to talk about stuff and discuss things. And Google and everybody else is able to go in there and see it. So that's why we're so happy to have John involved. It can change, though, keep in mind. All of this can change. If anybody has a problem with the way things are going in the world, all they have to do is pick out particular politicians, particular government officials that they like, and I have personally chosen to go after whoever is the most open through social media. Social media itself is the catalyst, in my opinion, to be able to open up communication amongst the masses and make it to where there's so much more transparency. And as those who know, in politics, transparency is almost a four-letter word. I don't know how they squeeze all 11 letters into four, but somehow, if anybody can do it, it's politicians. So here's the premise. I was reading a story on Mashable about how candidates are going online and being more open with it, and I started thinking, wow, these are the kind of candidates that I want. So I wrote up a nice long story. You can find it at socialblade.com/show about how if politicians, both candidates and current politicians, used social media, particularly Facebook and or Twitter, and especially YouTube, to keep us abreast of their activities, their plans, their goals, the roadblocks that are in the way, then everyone will be so much happier. And that's the guy and or girl that I'm going to be voting for in each particular thing. Obviously, their opinions matter as well. I'm not going to vote for somebody who crosses away from my core political standpoints, but I do want to see openness. It's always been so challenging for the government to be able to communicate to the people, for the politicians to be able to let the people know what we're doing, and more importantly, for the people to be able to communicate to their elected officials how they feel and what they think. You know, it used to be you'd have to go visit them, you'd have to call them, you'd have to send them a mail. You don't know if you're getting through. There's no direct interaction. Well, guess what? Nowadays, you've got social media. So if a politician wanted to, they could take all of their actions, throw it up on their Facebook, and get responses. Hey, guys, I'm wanting to, here's the bill. The bill basically looks like this. Click on this link to see what it's all about, and then tell me what you think. Is this right or is this wrong? Is this going to be good or bad? That's what I want to see. And that's what I'm going to ask you guys. Why isn't government more social, and should it be, or is that a big mistake?
No,
I don't think it's necessarily a big mistake, but I can see why they haven't gone for that angle as of yet, because they're so private when it comes to the competition and not wanting to have the other candidate to have any information that they could possibly use against them, because that seems to be the game. But I think that's the way they need to go. I think that it's going to change. I mean, social media is going to change and invade everything that we do. And I think that they're going to have to change the way they compete. And hopefully this will lessen the horrible competitions that go on within elections. And perhaps more so focused on reaching out to the public and staying social with us and earning our vote that way. So I really loved your story, JD. It was really well written.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
I think the thing that was interesting too is the transparency that you talked about. I think a lot of times people in the public eye might just kind of put it up for show, along the lines of, well, doing this major event, or tweeting or Facebooking something that's kind of mundane, but not really getting into the depth of what's going on in their minds or what's going on in their thoughts. And I think that needs to change as well. It's not just being on social media, but being transparent through that social media in a way that's believable.
Absolutely. See, it's funny because that's something that I don't think I portrayed very appropriately in the article. I'm not looking for who's most active on Facebook or most active on Twitter. There's a lot of politicians that are out there, especially those who are running for office, that are doing it. My point is, if you're going to do it, be completely 100% transparent. In other words, if you have a campaign promise, we'll start off with those who are campaigning, who are not necessarily elected officials, but who are in the middle of a campaign, whether they're in office or not. Before you can make campaign promises, it goes on television. Some people will talk about it, some people won't. But there wasn't a true centralized area where a candidate could say, "This is what I'm going to do. If you elect me, I want to do this, 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 and this, and I want your responses." Or if you elect me, I'm considering doing this, but I want to make sure that the people believe that this is the right thing to do. So please help me out. Governed by the people, and we've never been able to do it. Yeah, there's websites that talk about this stuff, that show everybody's platforms and everything, but there's no engagement on these particular websites. And usually, it's either the candidate's website, him or herself, or it's a third-party website that puts everything together. I want to be able to go to local councilwoman her area, and see everything that she said, have a consolidated point on Facebook specifically, where I can see what is she about, and how does she react if I say, no, 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 I don't want you to shut down the ice cream parlor down the block from the liquor store. I like that ice cream parlor, and so back off the ice cream parlor, lady. I want to be able to say that and see how she responds. So I want everything on there.
JD, are there any people that that are doing this right now?
Slowly but surely, it's starting to emerge. But again, it hasn't been, like Mashable pointed out, one gentleman, and I don't have the computer in front of me to see it, so I forgot his name, but that was where the idea sparked. Like, wow, okay, so this guy's saying, here's what I think, what do you guys think? And he's getting responses, and he had like after he didn't have a ton of fans. I think he only had like 4,000 or 5,000 fans. But when I looked at this thing, he had, out of those 4,000 or 5,000 fans, he would post a question, and he would get like 120 comments. And I was reading through the comments, looking, expecting it to be planted stuff. You could tell there were some, hardcore supporters in there saying, whatever you want to do, Bob, you're the man, But then there were others that were like, well, Bob, that's great. I appreciate this, this thought, but have you considered this possible consequence of going down the road? And Bob would respond, or at least somebody from Bob's office would respond and say, that's a good point. Here's why we think it is worth the risk. That's open communication with your constituents, with your people, publicly, for anybody and their moms to be able to see. They can respond if they like, or they can follow it. And guess what? A year and a half from now, after Bob's elected and he's been in office for a year, then they can say, hey, Bob, guess what? You didn't follow through with this. What's going on? And Bob will be able to say, oh, I am following through with it. You just haven't seen it behind the scenes. But we have a big announcement. We have a bill that's going to be introduced on March 23rd. So keep your eyes open. This is the date. I'm setting it as an event, as a matter of fact. March 23rd, we're going to be making this bill public for debate. So blah, blah, blah. Government can run so easily from social networks, it's not even funny.
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree with you. I think it would be extremely beneficial for them. They can utilize on Facebook, events and communication with people that they want to vote for them. But I think that they're so afraid because, it's that part of government that they want to stay. It's funny because it's like they want your vote, but they want to stay as disconnected as they possibly can. So, when they make those promises and they don't follow through, it's almost like, oops, you're already stuck with me. And so for them to have to then answer to actual people, I think that's what it's going to prevent them. I think that's what they're going to stay afraid of.
Yeah, I think
absolutely.
That's part of it too. I think the one thing that's interesting that kind of like plays into what you're talking about, some of the things that have been coming out in recent experiments about how people make attributions and judgments about other people on Facebook. Traditionally, we look at things and we look at somebody. If we want to know how nice they are, maybe we watch them with other people, or we get to learn about people by either talking to them or sitting back and watching or asking another person. But it's kind of funny, the strange thing that seems to be happening in some of these experiments is third-party information is becoming the thing where people make judgments. So, for instance, the one experiment found that people were rated on their socialness based on not what they said as status is or what they had in their profile, but what other people were saying about them. Same with attractiveness. You can find the best picture of yourself. And the thing is we've evolved at a point where we understand that picture is your best picture, but what do your friends look like? And that's actually was the takeaway from the experiment, which is kind of interesting. But I think that plays into what you're talking about with politicians, as far as finding out how content their constituents might be with them. If there's a bunch of people that are questioning the authority of that person or supporting them, that might give some cues as to what public opinion is about that person.
No, absolutely. Now, I am one of those people. I have the picture. I have a picture of myself that I put online, and that's the only picture other than the big red smiley face. But yeah, there's only one picture of me online. It was about 30 pounds ago, and I'm happy with it. And so I'm much less attractive in person than I actually am in my profile picture.
You have one picture from 3 different angles.
I picked out that one because it's got me smiling. I'm turning and blah blah blah. But you're absolutely right. Now, one of these days, I am going to be able to get up there, get me a good digital camera, and take a new picture of myself. And when I do, I'm going to be visiting hothardware.com to find the latest reviews, the hottest technology when it comes to digital cameras that can make J.D. Rucker look good. I can also check out everything else, whether it's computers, whether it's hard drives and all this other stuff, and go through. My wife is looking at me. Sorry, Dave, to hop in there. She's like, "Are they saying something about you being ugly or something?"
Well, if you read the review, you can check out the Canon camera that Dave reviewed, and it will not make you look ugly. Dave promises.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. Yes. So hothardware.com, they do get the latest. It's amazing because the other day I was looking at some of their stuff, and I had noticed that one of their reviews was a semi-negative review. It was kind of a man, this is hype. This is not good. And so I looked at the other reviews. I forgot what the actual item was. It was a processor. And I looked at the other reviews, and I was noticing that on other sites, it's like everybody was like, "Oh, this is an amazing processor," and blah 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 blah. And then I was wondering how in the world is Hot Hardware saying it's bad and everybody else is saying it's good? And then I realized that as I'm looking over, that the processor maker was an advertiser on some of these other sites. And I was thinking, oh, okay, so Dave and Hot Hardware, they're doing it right, and they're actually giving real honest reviews. And I'm not going to point anybody out, but let's just put it this way. You can trust Hot Hardware to give honest reviews as well, whereas some of the others out there are a little bit more, just trust me, Hot Hardware is the way to go. You can really, really do it. You can like them a lot. And as a matter of fact, you can even like them on Facebook. And if you do, he'll know, because there's some good new stuff regarding Facebook-like analytics, Aaron?
You know, I really appreciate that segue. It was really well thought out and well played. But, you know, before we move on, we did have some things in the audience regarding your government story. So I don't want to ignore what they have asked. I know you can't see the room, so I'm just wanting to help you out there. Before we go on to Facebook,
awesome.
Before we go on to Facebook, I do want to, make sure that we cover here. Amanda wrote, do you think the government would use social media the way it should be used? Or would they misuse it and eventually give it... Sorry?
No, go ahead, keep going.
Okay. Or would they misuse it and eventually give it a bad name because she believes it'll be tainted? And Red Wolf Media says everything has been edited and sugar-coated by government. So do we think that if the government decided to get extremely active on our social networks, would it taint what social networking is really about?
The government can't hurt social networking. They can hurt themselves through social networking. But keep in mind, the whole concept and everything that's currently behind social networking the idea is that it gives the power to the people themselves. Now, yes, there are ways to manipulate it. Yes, there are ways to get around it. In the end, pretty much every attempt to paint social media for what it is has always been foiled by the people themselves. If the reason that the government isn't as active, the reason that Barack Obama sent his first tweet years after he supposedly had his Twitter account, the reason that they don't want to do it is because it's an it's an exposure that they don't have 100% control over. The reason that I had written the article, it's not that I believe that it will happen. I know that some people will do it, some people will embrace it, especially on the local level, which is where it has the potential greatest impact, or not greatest impact, but at least to where the individual people will have the greatest control over it. But once you get into even the national level, that's where, if it is done right, if you find a congressperson or a senator who is able to implement it and work it properly, if they have to go in with two expectations. They're going to be trolled no matter what, and they have to be held accountable as a result of this. So to go in and do it half-heartedly, to go in and do it scared, it's going to take somebody with a whole lot of gumption and fearlessness, because they're going to be exposing themselves to potential negative, what's the word I'm looking for? There's a chance that it could, quote-unquote, backfire on them unless they go full force. If they go full force and they're completely open, completely transparent, completely engaged with their community, then they're bulletproof. They are social media bulletproof, because at that point, even the trolls can no longer hurt them. They can address them, and this is what I tell people. When I'm talking about Facebook in particular, I tell people, be open, be transparent, and expect there to be negative. Address the negative appropriately. Don't just jump in there and delete everything. Don't just jump in there and get all upset. If there's somebody spamming your Facebook page, yeah, okay, so you can dump them. But if somebody just has a dissenting view, don't dump them. Don't address them. And if they continue to have a dissenting view, agree to disagree. And then if they continue to have a dissenting view, guess what? The people that really matter, the people that are active and either agreeing with you or at least talking with you via social media in a way that allows them to be productive, these people are the ones that are going to see through the troll. Give a troll an opportunity to expose themselves as they're trying to expose you, because it will happen. Will it taint social media? Absolutely not. The idea that the government can do anything outside of actual tampering with the site. Now, sure, they can go through and pass laws, as Canada is very, very clearly and actively working against Facebook, potentially even in court, to try to stifle some of the things that they're doing that are inappropriate. But unless the government were to step in and say, look, we're shutting this down, or you can't do this, you can't do that. If they were to do something like that, yes, they could affect it. But then being involved in social media and engaged and transparent, all of these beautiful words that we've been saying throughout the show, if they do that, then there's not going to be any negative impact on social media itself. There's the potential negative impact on their own careers, on their own agendas, but it's the risk that they need to take. because if their opinions are right, if the goals are proper, if they can communicate it properly through social media, then they cannot fail. They cannot lose, unless they have just some wacky, lame ideas, such as closing down the ice cream store down the block from the liquor store. That's craziness. I can't believe that somebody's going to do that. Actually, I don't think anybody's going to do that. I made that up.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I hope that it has answered some questions. But, if government does decide to get on Facebook especially, we might actually end up liking it, and they will actually get great insights. Because Facebook has refreshed its insights dashboard by launching it for users to have an even more in-depth understanding of their demographics, from the likes, the shares, and reshares. Now, this is available to not only Facebook owners, but application developers and to you who have opted into using their social plugins. Using better graphs and charts, you will be able to see more of what is happening with the user on and off the site with their sharing behavior, which is great because this will allow you to see metrics of individual stories and even on comments that are liked on your page. You will also be able to save, print, and view in full screen mode of your graphs insights. If you're looking for detailed information, such as gender, age, country, city, and even languages, you can now take a comprehensive look at what makes up your audience. Even domain administrators who associate their domain with a user ID page or application can view detailed information, yet it's still anonymous. You can view this by going to facebook.com/insights. A page will appear, and you will see on the left-hand side the ability to switch between fans, insights, and interactions. Depending on what you choose to view, you will then be able to click on the top to view the detailed information. Although it is very detailed and informative, it is still extremely easy to read. I was really surprised. You go there, you see the pages that you're admin to or that you own, and it's comprehensive, but yet if you're not good at reading analytics, graphs, or charts, it's still a great way to... I guess what I'm saying is Facebook has made it extremely easy for you to see and be able to view what's going on with your page. And so what it can do then is help you target those specific demographics that you're looking to and weed out the ones that you're not. So I think it's very, very helpful and very useful. Yeah, what do you guys think about that?
They have a screenshot right here that we're looking at, and it really is. I mean, it's extremely straightforward. It has all the different pages, I guess, here. And then you can sort it by shares, likes, feedback rate, which I guess is how many people respond on average. Or I'm not sure what feedback rate is exactly. But at least the first two columns make complete sense. It gives you some great numbers. You can see what stories on your site are really popular and what ones are not.
As a matter of fact, I would recommend, if possible, this sounds like a perfect opportunity for us to do a mini webinar or whatever you'd want to call it, going over these, how it works and what it looks like. Not right now, obviously, but
we interrupt the Social Blade show for a webinar now.
Exactly. No, I'm saying, this would be a good opportunity to demonstrate for our visitors how it works, because it sounds like it's pretty easy to use. But even Ergo, for those who don't know, Ergo knows everything. So for him to not be completely aware of something, that means that we need to be able to help the people. So
help the people.
Today's the Help the People episode.
I really enjoy it. Sorry, go ahead, John.
Oh, that's okay. No, I think the thing that's interesting about these analytics, too, is also combining it with the ability to target people. If you're looking at it from an individual user standpoint, obviously looking at where pages are going, but it kind of makes me think back to a month or two ago. I was doing research with an undergraduate student, and part of our funding we took and put towards Facebook ads. And I was kind of impressed with how individualized you could make it. So, for instance, we knew based on our social networks that we would get a lot of people in education, a lot of people who might be younger, but we wanted to get a more diverse group. So we, singled out groups of, these kinds of people who are over this age group and are, college graduates, things like that. And I think combining not only that ability with the analytics to see, okay, well, I had 10 responses to my ads, and these people clicked my page, and then liked it, or they clicked my page and, and shared it with other people. I think combining those two things is really kind of a boon for Facebook as far as marketers or people who are trying to put something out there that they want to track, whether it's something nonprofit like research or whether it's for profit. I think it opens up some interesting things.
Oh, absolutely. And it's great because, they've made it so easy that if you're an admin or owner of a variety of pages, they have it listed all there. So you can just switch back and forth between them to see which ones are working for you the most and which ones aren't. I think it's a really great step forward for Facebook and anyone that is utilizing it even for businesses. So this is a great way to keep track of what's going on with the information you're sharing and how active your page is, which of course is the most important.
Aaron, was there something else that Facebook did today, or rather Flickr did with Facebook?
Yes. Okay. So before we go into our Yahoo story, well, today Flickr announced, actually this morning, that the company is going to be rolling out an integration with Facebook. So this means that if you choose to show to everyone through your Flickr page, when you upload a picture, it can automatically be posted on your stream on Facebook. So this is a really great way to share pictures. I mean, we all know that at the current moment in time, Facebook does not have the best photo feature. But
understatement of the century. Sorry. You know my thoughts.
I know.
On Facebook
Ergo and I have constantly battled between Flickr and Facebook because he promotes the heck out of Flickr, saying that that's the best place to post your pictures.
Well, it's
and
better
I've
than
stated
Facebook,
it is, but it's really convenient having it on Facebook.
So this still doesn't fully integrate them. It's just an auto share, basically. That's all this really is, correct?
Well, right. And what it is you have to make sure that you click on everyone. So, I mean, at least Flickr's being upfront about its integration with Facebook. And so our two worlds, Jason, they're colliding now. So Facebook and Flickr are now going to, have their photos in that one place.
I think this is just the first official way because I use Flickr and I'm fairly certain that I've had my photos show up on there before, but I think it might have been through a third-party app that I used, and now they have an official one to do it. But this isn't the only thing that Flickr, Flickr's parent company, let me start that over again. So this isn't the only thing that Flickr's parent company, Yahoo, is doing in terms of sharing these days. They just launched a new service called basically Yahoo Profiles. They converted over Yahoo Profiles to a new service called Yahoo Pulse. And what this is doing is sort of similar to what Google was doing with Google Buzz a couple of months ago, and really is still doing, but at least the launch layout. What they're doing now is it's basically an automatic opt-in. You have to go to a couple of pages to turn yourself off of this. And what they do, which is a little different than Google did, is anyone that has you in their address book will automatically get all of your different updates here. So if you have a Flickr account, on Facebook, you have to physically opt in here. But anyone that has you in their address book and uses Yahoo will see automatically when you upload a picture to Flickr with this setting here. And the same with if you're rating movies or buzzing stories. Again, anyone will be able to get those updates. And the really bad thing about it is you can't even tell who's following you on this because of the method that they have here. They tried to avoid a privacy risk that Google had with publicizing your address book. But say, a couple of years ago, because Yahoo's been around, Yahoo Mail and Messenger have been around for years. A couple of years ago, maybe you exchanged a message with, your doctor on there, and now he'll see updates of your pictures and everything. Perhaps not the person that you want to see those, or a boss, or an ex-boss, or ex-girlfriend, things like that. And there's no way. What you can do, you can actually opt out completely, which we'll provide some links. There's basically 3 pages that you have to go to opt out, sort of Facebook style. You have to click all around. But you can opt out of applications, and you can opt out completely, but you can't, again, see who is, we'll say, following you, for lack of a better word, and opt out of just them. So what do you think about that, Aaron?
Do you think that it's going to be a bit of a backlash there, like, with the information that's going on with Facebook? So, I mean, like, do you think Yahoo's going to get the same type of negative feedback with having this grab their information?
I think so. Yeah, absolutely. Or even more like Google again. Let's ask our privacy expert here. John, what do you think?
I don't know. The one thing that I thought of when I read it, and the one comment that I had ready that I was kind of laughing about, was the Yahoo answers were going to be shared.
Oh yeah, that too.
Normally, that's the kind of thing where maybe you would go to Yahoo Answers to ask a question you wouldn't ask somebody else.
That's a good point.
And, that's one thing as far as third-party information that you maybe wouldn't want to share. I mean, it's just something that the reason that website exists is for that. And I think in addition to photos or in addition to other things, that kind of information, people once people realize that information is being shared, then there's going to be some issues coming up with that. So I think that was the one thing I was looking at. Some of the apps that are going to create new privacy issues, and that was one of them, definitely.
Good point. JD, what do you think?
Well, I hate to rip on Yahoo, but I don't think that they're going to be significant enough to even be a blip on the radar. I think that they have this tendency to have the worst possible timing. So it's like, okay, we're going to bring up a privacy, something that's going to fall under privacy concerns. Let's try to sneak it by. Let's plan for let's shoot for end of May, early June to launch this. This will be a good time. It's like, poor guys. How they know that this is going to be in the spotlight when they're putting all this together? I guess what I'm saying is this: that Yahoo is slowly but surely growing into something that's considered to be insignificant in many ways. And it's not. I'm not saying the company is. Obviously, they're huge. They do very well at driving traffic and getting traffic still, but
this does affect, though, JD, a lot of people. A lot of people still use Yahoo for email. So I mean, no, they're not the popular company these days per se. But I mean, I even still I don't use it anymore, but I even still have a Yahoo email address. So I went through and opted out to these things. Just so if when I uploaded my pictures to Flickr, I have no idea who's following or has me in that address book. I don't want them getting all these things. So it does affect people.
I'm definitely not suggesting that they. I'm definitely not suggesting that it's not significant. What I'm saying is that even Facebook was pretty much, the challenge that they've been having with privacy are going unnoticed by the general public. If the Facebook one is, then I can't imagine Yahoo being, on a social media scale, I couldn't imagine Yahoo having any more difficulties than Facebook has had, which technically speaking, they haven't had a whole lot. There's been a lot of complaints on the tech end. There's been a lot of people talking about it, but your average Joe, if you were to go and do a poll, is there currently a privacy concern with Facebook, and just pick out 100 people on the street, you'd have about probably maybe 10, 15, 20 people max that say, oh yeah, Facebook has privacy concerns. They're all over the place. It hasn't hit a mainstream yet, and so this move by Yahoo to me is not. If Facebook didn't, then Yahoo's definitely not going to hit a mainstream curve. They're going to be able to sneak by any of these concerns pretty easily, in my opinion.
You had a good point.
I don't know about that, but before we move on to that, okay, because I do want to continue with this privacy, but I do want to just give a bit of an intro here for our guest who's been with us tonight, John Spinda. He is an assistant professor of organizational communication at Murray State University in Western Kentucky. A great deal of his research and teaching activity revolves around social networking and computer-mediated communication. So, John, do you agree with this? Do you think that Yahoo will just slide by, or do you think there'll be a bit of an uproar?
Well, I think it depends on, again, if people end up getting harm from it, there might be somewhat of an uproar. But in a way, the timing's kind of interesting. I think JD made an interesting point where everyone's talking about Facebook. Maybe it was advantageous for Yahoo to kind of, I don't know, have it come through at this point while everyone has their eyes on Facebook. I mean, that could be argued, that way as well. But I don't know if Yahoo's going to suffer the backlash, because I think JD does have a point in the fact that it's not seen as the social networking place. It's not always brought up in the discussion with Facebook or MySpace or Dig or anything like that. I think it's kind of one of those websites that its niche now is like a jack of all trades, master of none. They do a lot of things, and some of the things are prominent, of course. It's such a huge website, but it's not. When you think of Yahoo, you think of a lot of things. You think of games, you think of answers, you think of a lot of different services they have that are popular. So I think they're going to be able to get by with it because they're not focused on social networking. So I kind of do agree to an extent.
I think they might just slide by because they're not as popular as Facebook, but at the same time, Facebook is going to get away with it because they are so popular. Don't you agree with that?
Yeah, I think they are. I mean, they're going to get away with it because I think. And again, a lot of people think this is an age issue where, well, younger people don't care about their privacy. Research and in my own experiences in the classroom has proved that not to be true. It might even be the other way around. But I think when you have the mass of 400 million Facebook users, you're now talking about a large section of them who are apathetic. You're going to have some people who are highly involved, some who are apathetic, and that's not an age thing. It's it's a technology thing. So I think that there's going to be some backlash from the people who might be most interested in it. But the people who are kind of apathetic, it's not a big deal. And I think, we have shifted with privacy. I was reading something today that a study done at MIT talked about how 87% of Americans can be identified through zip code, gender, and I forget the other thing now, but it's three basic things that are on everyone's Facebook profile, unless obviously you opt out of those changes. So unless you're very intricate and take care of all of your X's and O's on Facebook, it is a privacy issue. So, a lot of things that if someone wants to get to you, they can do it on Facebook a lot of times with or without these plugins or different things that we've been talking about with privacy.
Well, I mean, the reason why we've asked you to come on is because there's been so much going on in regards to privacy and people talking about it, so much buzz about it, that along with various other things that are going on within social networking. For example, even last week we talked about how there was a study on college students. 40% of them are probably less empathetic because they're using social networking. And that ties in with a bit of bullying that goes on in the cyber world. So do you think that social networking has created us to be, not just college students, but us in general, less empathetic towards other people or more empathetic?
That's interesting. I guess there's two different schools you kind of laid out. And I think whether you're talking about media or social networking or anything like that, the question is, does the media change the people or do we change the media? And I guess broadly, I would say I subscribe to we don't change that much, but we kind of shape and mold things for our own purposes. And you brought up some interesting points about empathy. And are we less empathetic because of technology? In some ways, I think we are, and in some ways, maybe not. But I think when you talk about bullying, I think empathy, it's clear, actually, in what I've read, that empathy has gone down some when it comes to things like cyberbullying. People who have cyberbullied often say things like, well, I was just having fun, and I didn't realize that I was hurting somebody. And again, you don't want to generalize, but again, a lot of the narratives from people who've been involved with cyberbullying that are kids are saying it's not necessarily the disturbed individuals who physically bully somebody and take their lunch money or something like that. A lot of times it's the popular kids. It's the kids you wouldn't expect to be bullying who are, and the tricks are a lot different. The empathy kind of goes down, I think, a lot of times because you don't see that pain. So someone who has aggressive tendencies, who physically bullies someone of less stature, they physically see that pain and suffering, and they consider it to be something they kind of relish. But if you do something that's a little more underhanded, like outing, where oh, tell us about your relationship with this person, or give me your email password, and we're going to play this little prank on you. You don't see that person becoming upset. You don't see that person becoming distraught at home. A lot of times you don't have that immediate emotional reaction, and I think that empathy can kind of be changed that way. And also, with social networking, sometimes people are more blunt about how they put things. We don't have the nonverbal cue to realize that we're joking, or a lot of times people aren't necessarily efficient with their use of commenting. So if I make a comment on someone's photo or status, and I don't take 3 or 4 sentences to explain the context behind what I'm saying, that might be perceived as mean-spirited and less empathetic. But yeah, I definitely think that empathy is something we should be considering with social networking.
You bring up a really great point there too, because I think what happens is it's not social networking. I think we just lose our inhibitions when we're on the internet. We just don't see it as a part of our real world. But because of social media, it is interconnecting with our offline world. And so, now it's like people are questioning, are people less empathetic because social media is blowing up here and it's invading our other types of media forms. So I think that, when you're using social media and, if it's not a repetitive thing, text is really hard to convey sometimes exactly what you're trying to say. And, when it comes to the younger crowd, if they're cyberbullying, I think that just has to do with either they're just really mean or they've lost their inhibitions and need to be educated more. But I think that is separate from actual social networking and social media.
I would agree. I'd agree with that. And I think also the flip side I was going to get to it, I forgot to mention with empathy, is I think Facebook allows people to be more empathetic, where you have Facebook status like, oh, feeling very sick today, or not motivated today, can't get off the couch. A lot of times it's like, hey, you can do it, or don't let that worry you. And actually, a lot of the narratives coming out about people talking about social media and the research kind of tend to point out that sometimes people use social media as like a secret test, the empathy test. I'm sick today. Oh, my real friend will tell me, okay, I hope you feel better. Or my real friend will be the one to wish me a happy birthday on Facebook. So things like that. I think there are some other opportunities that are for positive empathy. But I don't know, it's one of those things that, I originally started as a media scholar, and there's kind of a long laundry list of history that, we're worried about change. When the printing press came out, people were worried about storytelling. When the penny movies came out, the silent movies, they're going to ruin reality. And then television and radio and the internet, all these things are going to alter or change people or make them worse or better. And, you really could say it does, but I think the changes that occur in people from media or from social networking are very slow moving. Almost like the plates of the earth or glaciers and things like that. It's not this rapid shift where we've fundamentally changed as human beings. It happens over the course of decades and centuries.
Yeah, I agree with that too, because, I've seen it myself. You bring up a good point. Again, you're full of them tonight, John, that, people are now connecting with other humans. And so when they put, I'm feeling sick today, or I'm having a down day, or, my boss just yelled at me, people will actually take the time now and say, oh, I hope your day gets better, or there's always tomorrow, or something like that that's positive, when they don't even have to make that choice to actually comment or give any type of feedback, where now it seems like we can turn to social networking a little bit to uplift our spirits. Now, I know that you're involved in education. Yeah, it's absolutely, you're right, it's easier. Now, I know you're involved in education.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was saying it's easier picking up the phone and calling somebody. You might get stuck in a half-hour conversation if you're on the go. In a way, it makes it easier to be empathetic. That was what I was going to say. I apologize.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And you're right, because, the thing is that we are so busy in today's world that we don't really have the time to utilize sitting on the phone for an hour and a half whining about what's going on with our day. But we do have those few seconds to tweet from our phone while we're going between meetings and say, oh God, I'm dreading this next meeting. And so people are connecting, and I think it's, in my opinion, I didn't do any studies, but from just viewing various social networking, I see that, people are reaching out to people more and being very supportive. And that's what I appreciate about social media. But in regards to you and education, you're actually right now teaching, it's a communications course, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
And so how are you integrating social networking and social media within communications?
Okay, well, in a couple of different ways. I think, what I try to do with my class right now, and again, this is a work in progress. And at this point, I'm also trying to put together an undergraduate textbook because, like JD would say, if they offered a degree in social media, it's still really not there yet. So that's kind of another goal of mine. But I think one thing that I try to do is integrate theory and practice. Okay, so somebody who maybe enrolls in my class who wants to learn more about social media, maybe I will go through and talk about privacy settings on Facebook or something like Skype, like we're talking with now, and give them that tool. And again, that might be boring for some people who've been on this for a while and are very, very well versed in it. But at the same time, I also try to get some theoretical approaches that, in the past 20 years or so, there's been some theory that helps explain how we interact through computer-mediated communication. How we bend and twist and adapt the nonverbal cues that we have available to us to make judgments about people and communicate with people. So what I try to do with the theoretical end is it allows them to kind of see what's coming with social media. See, I'm a believer that I think if you just try to follow the ball with social media, you're going to get lost. It's going all over the place. But if you have that framework where you know a few different concepts that might help you understand, and in history too, I start from the beginning with ARPANET and the first internet, and just talk about that for a few days too, because having that historical and theoretical kind of grasp of here's how we got here in the past 35 years helps you and enables you to maybe follow what's going to happen in the next 10 years. As college graduates, they can go into the workplace and again have the basic social networking skills, but then also challenge themselves to maybe go a little bit further to talk about how can we use social networking for businesses that I work for or things like that. So I try to integrate both of those kinds of things at this point. But again, it'll change as social media changes, and that which means it's going to change semester to semester.
Well, one of our co-hosts who's not here tonight, Jeff, we had a conversation just the other night about education, and we here on Social Blade have spoken about education and social media. And we, in my opinion, I think that it needs to be integrated within communication courses or other types of media courses, such as radio, television, journalism. Right. How do you feel about that? Because a lot of people are still like, well, there's not a set way of how to use social media, so how can you teach it? So how would you suggest?
Well, I think the key is, again, when you're talking about skills in social media and you're talking about things like media or journalism classes, I still think you need to teach some fundamentals of journalism. Not necessarily like, the inverted pyramid or different things. Like, I'm not saying you shouldn't teach that, but having those basics can help that person grasp how to write for social media down the line. I still think there's a progress of teaching that skill, that eventually teaching that skill for social media. So I think they should be integrated into traditional classes, but they should come maybe at the not at the expense of learning the traditional way of writing, just applying that to new media. So maybe being more immediate and less formal, because citizen journalism has changed the way we look at things. I read more blogs than newspapers online, and I think a lot of people are in that same boat. And it's one of those situations where how do you kind of integrate the immediacy of technology with the classic, here's how you need to write or here's how you need to film. How do we integrate things like that for changing attention spans? And that's something that's a real challenge. And I think the answer is to integrate it, but maybe not to integrate it on its own. What I'm trying to say here is I don't think you need social media 401. I think you might need to integrate social media into journalism 401 or film 401.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying there. I agree. Yeah, you don't need a separate thing, but you need to cover it as it relates to the other topics you're talking about at the time.
Yeah. I think, I think if you just make it about social media, it's going to change so much that it's kind of hard to teach that. Because, okay, let's say I create a social media 401 class right now, all right? And I spend so much time putting together things about Facebook and about Twitter and Dig or all these things. And, let's say that 3 years goes down the road and someone else is teaching it. Or maybe, I'm complacent and haven't changed. Or now I'm just starting to get that down. And 3 years has gone by and it's all changed.
Oh, yeah,
so what I'm saying is if I'm able to take what's hot now and teach it this semester into the traditional format, then 2 years from now I can talk about kind of what's hot then and put it into a traditional format.
Yeah, it's a tough topic
Right,
to talk about, or a tough subject to cover, just because it is constantly changing like that.
I don't think it should be an actual course. I don't think, because I know that, with education, there needs to be curriculum, there needs to be things that you have to study and all that stuff. But I think that needs to be integrated within courses that are already established by learning the basics of how to actually create a Facebook page or how to create a YouTube channel. Those types of things I think are very important and imperative for the future of communication and various media outlets. So I mean, right now a lot of them who are old school within various types of medias are scrambling to figure out how am I supposed to use these sites to benefit what I'm doing or what I'm trying to convey. And I think that just the basics integrated in already a curriculum that's established will be beneficial for radio, television, journalism, as well as communication courses.
So, John, I have a question actually now. You had mentioned earlier that you start your class off going all the way back to ARPANET and sort of cover the whole history there. So it just had me thinking, is there some point that really privacy started becoming an issue? And is it really more of a society thing, or just more and more people join? Because I know back then there was, the internet was completely different. People didn't even have passwords when it first started. So the world has changed. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think when I talk about it at the beginning, I talk about how it was different, but in ways I talk about how it was similar. There's a book from 1978 called The Network Nation that shows a transcript of people chatting in what was called the party room, which is really exact same thing as a chat room that we would have today. Of course, there wasn't video, there wasn't passwords, all that's changed, but at its core, it's really similar. So I talk about that. But then I think, asking when did privacy become an issue? I think really privacy became an issue when the internet had that rapid expansion in the 90s. And that's where I think a lot of the current problems, or what people would consider to be problems with the internet, exist. You look at the arc in adoption of things like the radio or television, they were much slower than the internet. The internet was the most rapidly adopted medium ever. And then you see the aspects, and it's almost not fruitful to talk about the internet as a big thing now, where we talk about different things like social networking or different aspects of it. But internet, when it first started in the 90s, was so expansive and so quick that people didn't realize, I think, fully grasp the privacy that was going on. And I think, with AOL and things like that, you had all these people who could IM you or talk to you. And in one way it was interesting, but another way it was kind of like, oh, this guy could be creepy, or, well, I wish this person would leave me alone, or that kind of thing. So I think really maybe that's where privacy started becoming an issue with the AOL and the early instant messaging and chat, where you started getting into that marketplace of people and the masses. So before it was, okay, yeah, we didn't have passwords in 1980, but then again, it was just a group of academics or scientists or doctors and not the masses. I think when the masses came on the internet in the 90s and in the 2000, then people started realizing, oh, wow, we have some privacy issues here.
Do you know what was like one of the first outcries or whatever in those terms? And everyone talks about Facebook now. What was sort of the first big incident that,
I can't really pinpoint one thing off the top of my head as far as, one watershed moment where privacy really, really got to people. But I would say I think people were worried about privacy. I think that there's certain behaviors online that really got people concerned. First, obviously, where you have the pedophiles or things like that online, that really concerned people a lot. And then early things into Facebook 2 or 3 years ago, where you have these student athletes who were caught in compromising positions, and then they were reprimanded, or hey, this person was fired from their job as a teacher, or didn't get a job because of this, and then people started getting a lot more concerned about it. And I think there's not one watershed moment that I can think of, but I think it's more of a trend of a couple of things kind of coming together.
We have a question for you, John, from the audience. Do you think that with integrating social media, there should be a set age group or grade to start teaching social media in school?
That's really interesting. I think it's almost like language. The earlier, the better. I think a lot of people who want language in schools, they want younger kids to learn. I'm going to kind of refer to some of the things I've read about problematic internet use, which is another thing I teach in my class, where some people use the internet too much at the detriment of their lives. With different things like gaming or whatever it might be. You're talking about 6% of internet users, or about 3 or 4% of internet users, which is a pretty sizable number of people who have these issues using the internet too much to, ad nauseum and too much. And I think what's happening is it's a bigger problem in Asia, and I believe it was PBS Frontline that had a really interesting show about this. But I believe it was in Korea. They were teaching 5 or 6 year olds, elementary, kindergarten, first graders about the internet, and they were singing songs like elementary school, like "The internet is my friend. I will not abuse the internet. I won't be mean to others on the internet." So really, ideally, in an ideal world, I think the earlier the better, because you have people use the term digital natives now. They come out of the womb and technology is there, and it's so iterative now that the grasp of 3 or 4 year olds, even to us, even as
digital natives.
Yeah, that's a term.
Oh, nice. I like it.
And I think those people, the earlier the better. But realistically, I think most of the cyberbullying and the real problems tend to start coming up around, I would say, age 10. So I think that would be realistic, because I don't think anyone's going to start at the youngest age groups. But I think middle school would be perfect.
And Swanson Tom in our audience, just to expand on what you've been saying, the radio took 38 years to have 50 million users, TV 13 years, internet 4 years, and Facebook alone had over 300 million in just under a year. Wow. So, I mean, the earlier the better, I would say. Yes, I agree with you, John. So do we have any last questions for John before we wrap up tonight's show? It's been such a great and insightful show with you, John. JD, any questions?
Nope.
Ergo, you're good?
I think I'm going to go and delete my Facebook account right now.
Have you discussed the web suicide machine on this program?
I think we might have mentioned it before. Yeah, I think we did. And they had a way to delete your Facebook account, but that got shut down because Facebook didn't like
Facebook
that.
shut it down. Yeah. I think I don't know, it might be shut down, but that was interesting to see people disconnecting. And we talk about adopting. That's kind of what happens is it has this huge arc where it just keeps going up, and then it stops, and then it actually drops a little bit for each of these media, like radio or TV. And I think we're seeing that now with the internet, where people are getting disgusted, and we just had to quit Facebook Day and all these things. So I think you have this small 2 or 3% who are kind of abandoning the internet, but I think it's interesting to see. So,
the question is for how long?
What's that?
The question will be for how long.
Yeah, until they need to use it for work or something like that, I'm sure. But exactly, it's becoming such part of our daily lives. And I really got a lot of great insights from my class as far as what I should be teaching from you as well. And I think I need to involve social media more. Again, talking about theory, that's great, but I also need to talk about what's currently happening. And you've given me some fresh insight for that. So I thank you as well for having me.
Well, yeah.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, seriously, thank you very much for joining us. John Spinda, Associate Professor at Murray State University. Go and sign up for his class. Or go apply for the school first, then go sign up for his class.
Sounds good to all of us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so everyone, thank you for watching the show, and make sure you are following us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Each of those sites you can go to with a / after that and write Social Blade, and you'll find us there. Make sure you sign up also for our SMS alert, so you get a text message on your phone every time we go live, so you never miss a show. You can sign up for that at j.mp/subus. So sign up for that. Also on our blog, socialblade.com/show, up at the top there is a new section we added so you can suggest a guest. So if you have someone that's just as interesting as John here, please suggest them, and we'd love to meet with them and bring them on the show. Also, there is a list that has all of our past guests there, and also we are doing a lot of new articles on the site, blog posts, so check that out. And there's a lot of interesting information, including JD's article that he wrote yesterday, I think is when it went live, about the candidates and getting the vote.
Yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in and taking part in the show tonight as well, and we'll see you next week.
Absolutely.
See ya.
And remember, next week we are on at the same time, when are we on? 9 o'clock Eastern, no, 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Also, remember that the drill down is on Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, Banned on the Web Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific. And we would lastly like to thank once more our sponsor, Hot Hardware. And have a good night, everyone. And always remember, we are Social Blade.